where are we in that? In the development of you? I mean, you asked that question. If we want to, where are we as a government, as like a, I guess within the context of economics, like where is that fight situated?
I think the Biden administration has been very attuned to this. Rohit Chopra, who's the director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, really invented the term junk fees. Our piece on junk fees comes out tomorrow, and you'll see all of these various strategies to just sort of lard on fees to the various consumer purchases. The FTC is banning junk fees, usually pretty much for a disclosure regime, saying you have to show the all-in upfront price. And then you can comparison shop between one item and the next. The CFPB has limited and gotten rid of these credit card late fees. They've capped the price from $32 or $35, which is the normal price that has been charged for a late fee on a credit card, to $8, which is the cost that actually the credit card company incurs if they need to collect on a delinquent debt. So CFPB has also dealt with, we have a piece coming next week on credit pricing. And CFPB last week had this announcement that these buy now, pay later firms, which are these apps that allow you, they're basically like old school layaway loans, only for the digital generation. And they make it much easier to buy everything, but they're completely unregulated. CFPB said, we're going to treat buy now, pay later like it's a credit card. And so these companies will have the responsibility to get rid of charges that seem fraudulent or disputed, and many other protections for the consumer. So, those are just a few examples. I mentioned others earlier, public options, things like that. I think, the Biden administration started this task force on unfair and illegal pricing. It's being co-chaired by Jonathan Cantor of the Antitrust Division of the Justice Department and Lena Khan of the FTC. I talked to Lena Khan for my story. We're going to have an interview later I believe next week, with Lena Khan about these issues. They're very attuned to it, and they're starting to create the regimes. Obviously the election might have something to say about that, but they're starting to create the regimes that respond to some of these new pricing strategies.
I got one tiny micro question, then a macro question. Do we know how much those junk fees, particularly on the credit card, how much that's saving yet? I mean, because it occurs to me like, it's not just a question of we're going to make, $18 every time someone got a late fee. We're larding on a profit, on the late fee, but it's also when they only get to recoup what it cost them, there's no incentive to actually make people pay late. Like, the way
like when you're sent your bill 2 days before the due date, or 100%, stuff like that. Yeah.
And it's always like, oh no, you're supposed to pay the statement fee, not the activity fee. Like, I mean, like
CFPB has estimated that this rule, which is now being contested down in Texas by the Chamber of Commerce, would save customers.
With that one judge in the Fifth Circuit?
Not Kazmarek, but yes, in the Fifth Circuit, a different judge, who has tried to get rid of, actually a Trump judge, very interesting story. A Trump judge has received this case, said, this has nothing to do with Fort Worth, Texas. This was made, there are no credit card companies here. The rule was made in DC. All of the lawyers on this case live in DC. I'm sending this to DC. And the Fifth Circuit said, no, you can't send that to DC. You have to go, it has to go back to Fort Worth. So there's this fight going on right now. But to answer your question, CFPB has estimated that this one rule would save $10 billion a year for consumers.
That's extraordinary. How durable are these things? I mean, let's say Trump gets elected. How, obviously Lena Khan is gone. Cantor is gone. How durable Chopra.
Wow.
I mean, how durable are the reforms? Like, do you have a sense of I mean, I imagine a lot of these things are reversible, but there's also sort of like a bureaucratic and administrative inertia that makes things harder once they are entrenched. Does anybody have a sense of like how many years does it take to entrench these things where even, like the industry itself will say, look, it's actually now we've adjusted and it's harder for us to change. We'd rather you don't make this change to, enrich us more, or because we're just not set up to maximize that enrichment.
I mean, at a certain level, I don't think anything is durable in politics, especially when you have a very determined opposition that has written a manifesto that says we're going to deregulate anything and everything. So,
Project 2025 type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's definitely on the radar of not just the architects of Project 2025, but the, corporate lobbyists who they listen to, that we don't want the government messing with our pricing schemes. We don't want the government involved in this. We want you guys to look away. And so, I think if Trump comes into office, that a lot of this stuff is allowed to go on with very little resistance. Now, I mean, the Trump FTC and DOJ did start the Google case. It started the Facebook case. So there's a possibility that there are some anti-monopoly elements of a new Trump regime. It's actually the chapter in Project 2025 on antitrust is actually really interesting because it's completely contradictory with itself, like within the bounds of that section, and it almost apologizes for itself. It's really kind of interesting that there's a bit of a fight intellectually within those regimes. But I think it's very clear that the overriding belief of the Trump administration is cronyism, right? Of a future Trump administration. He has said, this was reported last week, that he would help the oil industry get all their mergers through if they gave him a bunch of money for his election campaign. So, that's probably the larger ideology and philosophy as it relates to corporate America. If you pay me, you're on my side, and if you don't, screw you. I think that's pretty much.
To be fair,
it
it's also not just corporate America. Like, apparently, I just read a piece where he was basically trying to get Sheldon Adelson's widow to give him a ton of money, and her price was annexation of the West Bank.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a pay to play.
Never.
It's just going to be a pay to play government. So yeah.
If we had more time, we would talk about this, and we're gonna do the price fixing on this real page algorithm in the future. But the funny part that we were talking about before the show is last time you were on, we were talking about that guy David Tron. Was it? Is it David Tron who was running in Maryland? Bankrolling
$60 million of his own money
in the primary.
The primary,
and he got like 20 points. I think he lost by. And that guy is having a very, very bad month because not only did he blow 60 million on a congressional race that he did not win, the FTC apparently, I had headlined this, is prepping a pricing lawsuit against the largest alcohol distribution company in the country, which happens to be his.
Well, they're going to prosecute against Southern Glazer, which is a distributor, but that distributor is working with the retailer Total Wine, which is Tron's company. So
I see. Okay.
It's kind of roundabout, but yes, I mean, he's very involved in that in that potential action, and we'll see if the company is named in the case.
That is a tough month.
That is a tough month. That is a tough month. But the one interesting tidbit, and we're going to have the price fixing piece out on Thursday. And of course, I mean, if three people walk in a room and they say, we're going to raise the price of widgets from $8 to $10, that is a clear antitrust violation. Even Republican regimes send people to jail for that. What we have now is it's not three people walking in a room. It's an algorithm collecting all the data on a particular market, giving it to those three people, and then those three people individually decide to raise those prices. So that's what this real page kind of thing is. And one great tidbit here is that this really originated with the airline industry. So there's a company called the Airline Tariff Publishing Company, which posts real-time fares from practically every flight that's going on around the world. That's why if a flight price goes up $5 on one in one airline, it usually goes up $5 on the other airline almost immediately. Justice Department looked at this in the 1990s, said, okay, we'll put in a couple conditions, couple guardrails, but you can keep doing it. The guy who was really behind the creation of that ATP company ends up becoming the guy who builds the technology for RealPage. It's the same guy.
Well, I remember from that ProPublica piece, because I think I interviewed the writer of that in 2022. The piece said something, or maybe there was a quote from some, I don't know if it was a regulator or whatnot, saying like, just the way you can understand this is forget that it's an algorithm. Let's just say it was called Bob. And everybody, Bob was a consultant and said, look, I know what your competitor is going to be like. Everybody in this market should be doing this price. And you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to collude with them. Just trust me. I'm advising them. Everybody does this rent. And the whole thing was to basically, they found like, you're going to make more money by raising your rent and keeping some of your inventory empty. Getting people into these things.
And what you'll see in the piece is that's being used not only in rental markets, but in hotels, in agriculture. There's a current lawsuit against a company called AgriStats that does this for meat markets, poultry markets. It's used in healthcare. The company GoodRx does a version of this. So it's becoming more and more ubiquitous because they feel like you saying it's algorithmic rather than three guys in a room gets them off from a legal standpoint off the hook. And we have Lena Khan in this story saying, whether it's three men in a room or an algorithm, it's no different. There is no sort of algorithmic exemption from the antitrust laws.
And I get one more question on this, and maybe you have a sense of it. And I haven't dug too deeply into this latest story, but the FBI was sent to this Cortland management, I guess it is. Is that because they're afraid that people are going to get rid of, like, they're going to destroy evidence? Like, I mean, because you could
potentially, I don't really know.
Stuff.
Yeah, I don't really know what the circumstances are behind this raid. What I do know is that Cortland Management is one of these companies that has a large segment of the market, I believe in Atlanta, and was alleged to have used this system among other systems to aggregate data of rental markets. One of the other companies, and I think this is interesting, and maybe we'll see what happens with this in the future. One of the other companies that has done this, particularly I believe in Seattle, is a company called Yardi Systems, and it's a RealPage-like pricing aggregator, market aggregator for rental markets. And this guy Yardi just became the head of WeWork. He just became the owner of it. He just bought it out of bankruptcy. And you can imagine that we could see this drift over into those office rental rates.
Interesting. David Dayen, thanks so much for joining us, folks. Head over to prospect.org right now. You can read.
And to read everything on this special issue, it's very simple.
Right at the top. I was just about to say that.
No. But we have a special URL, prospect.org/pricing. So if you go to prospect.org/pricing, all of the stories as they come in on this special issue will be landing there.
And I mean, it's also a vertical. I don't know if you've seen your website, but it's also like one of the top.
I am aware of where it is on the website.
All right. I just not sure because, I know you're a busy man. You don't get a chance.
I am. I got people for all that with the website.
Oh, yeah. I have no doubt about it. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. David Dayen, always a pleasure. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.